Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over all of the changes that have just occurred with Maugrim Woods earlier this morning for the Warganing event. There were 7 troops that were changed, as well as 3 troops that were added. This is essentially like a whole new kingdom coming out, maybe even a little bit more, because every single one of these troops have been, or all 7 that got switched, were made to a point that they are now viable. Plus, there was 3 additional ones of the Forest Guardian, the Warg, and the Wayfinder. So, we're going to be going mainly in this video, just going over the 7 that were changed, and I'm kind of just doing a kingdom showcase for this. So, we'll kind of do both of those. Let's go over all 12 of these in this one video. Normally, I do this within the actual event video, but I'll be keeping that separately just to go over the Warg and Wayfinder. But anyways, let's start and go over all of the changes. For one, there were quite a few on Barbarous. The main one to note is it now has a 5 times boost ratio. It explodes gems, deals damage to a random enemy, boosted by the brown gem destroyed. That is now a 5 times boost ratio instead of a 3. One other extremely notable change that I got is instead of having a sturdy Avenger regeneration, it now has Avenger regeneration and now impervious. And of course, impervious is one of the best traits in the entire game right now as far as the basic traits, because it's immunity to essentially everything in the game. So Barbarous is definitely very, very powerful. That 5 times boost ratio, that's like one of the highest boost ratios you can even get. You can explode about probably about 4 to 5 rounds on average whenever you do that, and that alone will be about 25 to 30 extra damage on it. So definitely a lot of high damage potential on Barbarous now, and it still has the board control. You can still just use it as a random or a normal explosion. You get to target wherever you want. Cockatrice got a lot of changes as well. It entangles an enemy, that's it has always done, as well as drains its mana, but now it creates 6 brown gems boosted by the mana drain at a 4-to-1 ratio. 4-to-1 on average, that's probably going to do about 2 to 3 extra rounds, so that is a decent amount of browns. If you can spawn anything over 10 or higher with that, you are likely getting an extra turn. Its colors are also brown, so you'll be able to basically double entangle and double mana drain with the Cockatrice. One other change that it got is it is one of the first, a couple troops this week were all tied at being the first troops to get this new entrapment trait, which deals double damage to entangled enemies. So it's just a standard 2 times, and it does it for enemies that are entangled. And one thing to note is it does have air link, so you're going to be able to get this up extremely quick. For the air link, you'll be able to get it in likely 2 turns, and then you'll be able to get its ability right back up by the brown gems that it creates. So a lot more viable now. You'll probably see using Cockatrice a lot more than some of the other ones that used to be used a lot right now, like Manicore, Spirit Fox, and other stuff. Because once you get a Cockatrice going, or if you put 2 of them on a team, they'll be able to just keep going and going and going. Whereas other drains, they might have empowered on them, but once they actually use their ability, they take a little bit to get back up. And now Direwolf. Direwolf is possibly the largest buff on all of them. It is now better than the Winter Wolf, I would say, and it got several changes. For one, it has a 8 mana cost now instead of 6, but that's only because its ability just got extremely ridiculous. It entangles and places a hunter's mark on the first enemy, then deals damage to them. It didn't even used to do damage before, nor entangle. And if there are 13 or more green gems, it then gains an extra turn. So it still has the extra turn, it still has the hunter's mark, but now it also entangles and deals damage. And it got all of that for only a 2 higher mana cost, so very, very strong. One other thing is it got one of its traits switched out. I completely forget which, but it got it switched out for the new entrapment, which is twice as much damage to entangle. So it's exactly like the Winter Wolf in that regard. The Winter Wolf has 2 times the shatter, which is 2 times the frozen, and the Winter Wolf, of course, freezes. And this one instead entangles and does the 2 times to entangle. What makes it really better, though, is the fact that it's only 8 mana, and it's essentially the same exact troop as a 12 mana troop, the Winter Wolf. So I wonder if they'll rebalance either of them. It is slightly different. This wolf does an extra turn on 13, whereas the other wolf creates 5 blues on 13. So you can't actually loop with a Direwolf, but you have that guaranteed extra turn. Whereas with a Winter Wolf, you possibly may miss if you just do those 5 blue the 5 blue spam. Anyways, Drood got no change. We already know Drood was pretty much always the strongest troop in this kingdom. You normally used it with Valkyrie. One of my favorite early game builds to suggest when you really don't have anything is actually Drood, Valkyrie, Drood, mainly because you have an excessive amount of water links. You get the Bless, which will just buff up everything, plus if it gives you magic, you'll be getting more souls in your Valkyrie. Has fast traits, so they'll all get up quickly, and it just deals damage to 2 enemies, plus 1 to the adjacents, and it's just so much damage. It's always been good. It hasn't gotten changed at all during this update. Finnair, on the other hand, got a huge update. For one, he's now a War Gear Beast. Before, he was only a War Gear. This is extremely huge because his ability actually boosts based off of Beast. And it has been changed slightly now too. It now gives an ally 16 attack and life, and then doubles the effect if they are a beast. And what this used to be is it just used to give like an extra little bit of attack. If they were a beast, it used to give all allies HP, and then it would just give attack to whatever the target was. But now it focuses completely on one troop. But what makes it really good is you can now use Finnair in a first slot, have it with the leadership. You'll then be getting a huge amount of attack and HP on it, and then you'll just be able to get like Skull Spam or something with it, maybe the new Nature Guardian or something, and it will do a lot of damage with that combination. Plus it gains even more from the Nature Spear. If you have more green, it'll be gaining even a higher buff. And as far as buffing up troops, it's even better than that of a Spark Grinder, because Spark Grinder does attack and armor, and as many of you know, armor is not as good as life. And with this, there's a lot more options, since life will help keep you alive against true damage and against a lot of other different attacks in this game compared to that of armor. So definitely very strong now. I used to consider him, he's always pretty much been the most useless troop. Or not the most useless troop, but you know, one of the weaker troops. He's never been viable ever, and now he finally is. Forest Guardian, of course, is the one that came out today. Transforms, it's basically like an Inferno King. Transforms all purple gems to skulls, and then all brown to green. All allied beast gains barrier. It is essentially, like I said, like an Inferno King, except for a barrier and skull spam. One other thing that is really good about it compared to that of Inferno King, that Inferno King cannot do, is it can create its own color. Same as the Cockatrice, now that it can create its brown. Well, the Forest Guardian can also create its own green, which is something that Inferno King cannot do. This does it to the... It uses green and yellow, so it'll easily be able to get up its ability. One other thing is the Lord of Beasts. Lord of Beasts gives 50% mana to all beasts. If they already have fast, that will not trigger on them. It can only go up to 50%. Like if they have the fast trait and you have this trait for the 50%, it'll just stop at 50%. It won't go all the way to 100%. Unfortunately, that would be a little bit too broken, being able to give all beasts all the way up like that. But we have that. And he's just very strong with beasts. One other good thing, you can get him on event chests this week. You only need one of him. This isn't a kind of legendary that you would need to upgrade. This is just, you get one and then you're set. You don't need to go for multiple copies. All it's going to gain at Mythic. It has nothing that scales off of magic, unlike Inferno King, which is somewhat good because Inferno King doesn't really use magic, and having it like this, you won't have a higher amount of magic, so things that counter it won't really be able to do anything unless it gets something like Silence. But yeah, definitely a lot better, I would say, than Inferno King in most instances. Next up is the Barbarous. Got two huge changes. One is it now has a 50% chance to devour, up from 25. That's a double increase. And it feels like 100% or 0% sometimes. It's another one of those random instant kill abilities. There's been quite a few of those recently in the game. This is just kind of another one, though it did need that buff. It has been a very bad legend for a long time, but now it is finally viable as a troop. One other thing that got changed is it now has a 25% chance to summon a warg whenever an ally dies. Of course, the warg is that new thing that farms souls. That's also from Maugrim Woods. One thing to note about this is, well, for one, it's not 100% anymore, and there was a glitch with this earlier where it would just keep summoning more and more, like the dead Barbarouses would just keep triggering their traits. I was testing this earlier, and it seemed to have been fixed. I don't know for sure. I saw it like last night when I was trying around, and it was definitely broken. And I just tried it recently before I did this video. I was going to make a whole video of it, and then for some reason it didn't happen, so I don't know what's up there. But yeah, I think it might be working correctly right now. I'm not quite for sure. But there is a refund for it because it is a huge change. Even though overall it's a buff to the character, it does have a refund available, mainly because of it's a only a 25% chance now to summon something instead of the previous 100% chance. One other thing to note, which I didn't say earlier, is the Cockatrice also has a refund. This is mainly because its mana cost was increased from 9 to 10, though overall it is much better of a troop. than what it was previously. Next up is the Ranger. The only change that it has is it now has a boost ratio based on alive. It still does the same exact 21 or the damage to an enemy and then 8 randomly split, but now it also has a boost ratio based on however many allies you have alive. And one interesting thing about this Ranger is he's going to be very, very powerful earlier on in the game. That's going to be 20 extra damage every single time you cast that. I know from when we got data a while back from like the most used troop around level 1 to I think it was like 20 or 30, and this was actually one of the most used troops that early on in the game, other than Goblin and a few other things which everyone has at that point. And this is just going to make it even more viable for probably the first 50 levels of the game. You might even be able to use it in some teams, but the only problem is he's only a war gear, so you'd probably only use him in an all war gear team, and there's currently not really good war gear synergy for a 4x war gear team, and its traits are still all the same. Next up, we have Scarlet. Scarlet got a decent buff. Actually, this is the last one that got changed too. Aw, we don't have any more changes though. There are so many of them. Anyways, Beast Slayer. It now does triple damage instead of double damage, and it also got its traits switched around. It got its Beast Slayer switched up to the first. I believe it was in the second location previously. It also got some of its damage reduced slightly, but that's just because it does a 29. Oh, yeah, never mind. Sorry, I remember what it was. It used to have a leadership, and they ended up switching out up the Beast Slayer and giving it armored instead, so it'll be able to really be a beast counter. They've been trying to put that more towards the top, like any kind of troop that's supposed to be countering a specific thing, because most of you know on Epic, or on all troops in general, but particularly on Epics and Legendaries, it's a lot harder to get the second and third traits that they have because they cost arcane trait stones. But whatever the first trait has tends to be the one that you get earlier on, since well, for one, you have to do them in order, but also because they are a lot cheaper than the second and third traits, because they require 0 arcanes to actually get up. I believe it just takes a lot of the ultra rare and just a bunch of minors and something like that to be able to get it up, which is why on epics and legendaries you tend to only get the first trait, then stop for a while, and then unless they're like really good, get them later. And on this you kind of only need to stop at the first trait. Now Fire Spirit won't help much. Armored is armored. It's one of the weaker troop or traits in the entire game, but it is definitely a very strong beast counter, and you might be needing it. If you need a Scarlet, you can unlock her just by doing the Maugrim Woods questline. She is unlocked after that, and if you ever see beasts going rampant, you can just get her. She'll do triple damage to them and put them in their place. And that's really it for all the changes. We'll do Warg and Wayfinder in the event video a little bit later on, probably in a couple hours. Spirit Fox already got a change earlier to... actually, did it even get changed? No. Even previously it didn't get changed. It has never been changed. Anyways, that'll pretty much wrap it up for this video. If you have any other questions about any of these changes, anything about the events, anything about the game in general, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Anyways, that will wrap it up for this video. Thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful day.